Hey guys, happy new year. Welcome back. Hope everybody's 2024 started out great. As I know my year's been pretty busy. Mrs. Wi-Fi's year's been pretty busy, but we're finally glad to be here to join you guys for the Fly High Wi-Fi podcast, the mental health podcast. Today we have some great topics. We have bipolar disorder. We have somatic symptom disorder. She laughs because we're talking about two different things, but yeah, we got it figured out. We are doing the one that she thought we were doing. So, but we are here. Technical difficulties to strike for the first podcast of the year. Mrs. Wi-Fi does not have her camera. It will not be recognized. But you guys get to see my lovely face and hear her lovely voice. How about that? So, further ado, I'm ready to get today's session underhand, and I will let Mrs. Wi-Fi start with her entry.
All right. Yeah, like Ryan said, we've both had a busy year so far, so it's nice to be back. And I'll get started with which one should I start with?
Whatever one you want to start with.
Let's do the somatic symptom disorder since we've had confusion with that one between the two of us. So somatic symptom disorder is characterized by an extreme focus on physical symptoms, such as pain or fatigue, that causes major mental distress or problems functioning. So essentially,
so it's a physical pain that really takes its toll on a mental state.
yes.
Okay.
So they hyperfixate, say like they have a headache or we'll just go with the headache.
Okay.
They're going to run with, they have pain and they have this headache. And that physical pain will either take over in a mental state, so an emotional distress, by where they're just so worried that it could be so much more than a headache. So they're going to run with it and think it could be like a brain tumor or something like that. So they're going to go to doctors. And there could be something more wrong with it, but they kind of take it to this extreme where they're just so worried that there is a further thing than just the headache. Or like the headache, they kind of get in their own head about it and they kind of sleep it off for days. They just have no motivation. If they have that headache, it just takes over their whole life.
All right. So it's like a flip of depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep,
in depression, we have mental that can physically cripple you. Now we have a physical that.
You're cutting in and out.
Oh, my mic must be set up too wrong. All right. So like I said, it's like depression, where depression can mentally get you going and then physically cripple you. But now we have one that is physical that can mentally cripple you.
Mm-hmm.
So wild.
Yep. So they actually go hand in hand a little bit, like it'll, unless I'm confusing the two because I've reread them a few times today. So symptoms, pain is the most common symptom, but whatever the symptoms are, you could have excessive thoughts, feelings, or behaviors related to those symptoms, which can cause significant problems and make it difficult to function, and sometimes it's disabling. So like I said, they just like won't get out of bed, they won't move, they'll either start going to doctors back to back to back because they want to know what's going on. And like I said, sometimes like this obsessive thought does actually lead to something more.
Okay, so this isn't to be confused with like being a hypochondriac, right?
Nope. Two different things.
All right, just making sure.
So this is just strictly on, I guess they could probably run hand in hand, but hypochondriacs can be hypochondriacs about multiple different things. This is strictly just about your health.
Okay. So physical
Um,
pain that creates a mental. All right.
so these thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can include a constant worry about potential illness, viewing normal pain, physical sensations as a sign of severe physical illness. So something that's like normal. Maybe you go work out and you have like the aches and pains from the lactic acid in your muscles. They kind of take that into like a deeper thought, a deeper meaning behind it, just because they have that pain kind of triggers them to something else is wrong.
All right. I'm back.
Um, what'd you hear?
No, none of that. I won't even lie to you.
um,
But
so
I'm sure Chad did.
good.
All
Don't want to leave you
right.
behind.
Yeah. We can continue on.
The next symptom is feeling that symptoms are serious while there is no evidence that it's serious. Thinking that physical sensations are threatening or harmful. Feeling that medical evaluation or treatment has not been adequate.
Okay.
Fearing that physical activity may damage or may cause damage to their body. Repeatedly checking their body for abnormality. So, like, they're actually looking for it.
Okay. Physically looking for the pain too. All right.
It says frequent healthcare visits that don't relieve your concerns or they even make them worse.
Okay.
Being unresponsive to medical treatment. Uh, and then it says for systematic symptom disorder, more important than the specific physical symptoms you're experiencing is the way you interpret it and react to the symptoms and how they impact your life. So they're bringing it back to that mental aspect that there could be something physical, but you have to be able to control like that mental side of it to be able truly to get down to if there actually is something truly wrong with you,
Okay.
like on that physical side.
Trying to think of like I've went through this, but I honestly don't know that I can relate to it to where I've noticed myself doing it, or anybody that I've actually known personally to do things like this. But again, then I could have been more thinking of the lines of they were being a hypochondriac, but it could have been this whole
Yeah, I think I know growing up playing sports, like I injured my knee or my shoulder, so every time I felt a pain, I was like, oh, there's more to it than just the
time. Okay.
normal aches and pains. So I guess when I was reading this, I kind of related it to that. I don't think by any means that I have this, but I was kind of relating it to anytime my knee was a little sore or my shoulder was more sore, I was like, oh no, I'm gotta like, I retore, I redid this,
Okay.
I redid. So that might be like a small level or a small example of what maybe they're experiencing
And I'm
on a day to day.
and I'm sure there's different like variety levels of it to where the majority of the things that we do have different classes and different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there has different levels to it too. So that makes sense that you relate it to that though, because it was more of a traumatic time when you got hurt, so you remember it that way.
Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like in my head, I was like, I never want to feel like when I tore my ACL, I never wanted to feel that pain again. So anytime my knee was sore in that side, I was like, there's something wrong. We're going to avoid that pain at any cost. So I'd be at like the physical trainer. I'd be like, there's something wrong. What's wrong with it? And they're like, you just have an injured knee. Like it's going to
Right.
be sore. And I'm like, nah, maybe there's something more. Same with like my rotator cuff. I've partially torn my rotator cuff. So I know like that pain. I remember like trying to serve the volleyball and I just had no strength and the ball just like fell flat in front of me.
Don't wish shoulder injuries on anybody. I tore my shoulder playing softball. Was I felt like literally useless because you do everything with your shoulders and arms that you can't do it when you're doing that in a sling. Every movement
Mm-hmm.
hurts. Everything you try to do hurts. Sleeping.
Yep.
So
So, I mean, I guess that would be like a small, maybe example of something
somatic.
that they experience daily.
Okay.
Because that would be something very minor compared to some people they experience this daily.
Do we have percentages of this by chance? Of
No,
the okay.
actually, um, just because the cause of this isn't clear, that's actually going to be my next, like, cause of this is not clear
Okay.
because it's all dependent on like you.
The individual.
So, yep. Um, and they also can't really diagnose this too well if something does come up, like if they're continuously going to doctors and something does come up, it's harder to diagnose it
Okay.
as just that because there actually was something further wrong. So there's like a bunch of those limbo areas of there was a reason for them to be worried because this was found.
Okay. Yeah. So it's strictly the individual.
Mm-hmm.
So
But some of the causes are genetic or biological factors. So if you have an increased sensitivity to pain, you might develop this because you're feeling more pain than like a normal person.
okay.
Um, family influence, so genetic or environmental. So again, that can go back to like if you're have a higher like sensitivity to pain, or if you were always as a kid kind of like maybe put in a bubble or whatnot, you didn't really get to experience any of that. So when other stuff was out, or it could even go back to like always going to doctor's appointments as a kid, so that kind of got put in your head. So now you always have to go to doctor's appointment for everything.
So I'm the opposite way. My dad hated the doctor, so we never went to the doctor.
And is that the same thing for you now?
Yeah.
So it was an environmental impact.
Exactly. So that's my example. So like I'll push it off till I have to. That's all there is to it. You know, I will. I'd be like, oh, I'll go tomorrow. And then tomorrow apparently comes 3 weeks later. So
Mhm.
yeah, and so
So,
that's an example of environmental.
hmm yeah, and right below it says learned behaviors, so they kind of go together.
Okay.
Um, and this one I don't really know how I feel about it, but it's listed on quite a few different websites under studies that they've done. So personality trait of being negative.
Personality trait of being negative. Okay.
So kind of you're perceiving everything in a negative way, so you're kind of searching for that negative outlook. I'm not sure how I feel about that being considered a cause, but it was seen on so many different. So there was like Harvard study, the study, the Mayo Clinic, quite a few had mentioned it. So
Okay. A lot of the major schools that are doing a lot of these studies that we go over studied this also.
yeah.
Okay.
So the next section is risk factors. Risk factors for you to have this disorder would be having anxiety or depression. So we talked about depression earlier, and I told you they were kind of tied.
Yeah.
Um,
Anxiety comes
having
up in
a
almost every one of these that we talk about.
Yeah, anxiety is a big one.
Yeah.
Anxiety and depression are definitely like a seed for a lot of other mental disorders because they just like fester
Right.
and they just blossom. I don't know if I should use the word blossom, but they just like blossom into so many other things. um, so anxiety and depression, having a medical condition or recovering from one. So you're kind of stuck on that medical condition and it kind of just keeps impacting you. Experiencing a stressful life event, trauma, or violence. So that could stem it too.
Okay. Trauma and violence. Trauma is another big thing that we can tie into all
hmm
this stuff.
So they talked a little bit about prevention in these studies. And again, it mentions like little is known about preventing this because there's so little about this disorder, just because it is so individualized, and there's like all those twists and ties that if something does get found while they're kind of going to doctor's appointments, you can't really diagnose them with it.
Okay.
So preventing it, if you are somebody who struggles with anxiety and depression, go seek that professional help as soon as possible. So go get that help, especially if you're someone who notices these other symptoms coming up, just to get it under control and to learn more about it.
Okay.
Learn to recognize when you're stressed, because this does seem to flare up when stress is around.
Okay.
So you
So
want to start.
stress amplifies your whole somatic symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I can see that because a lot of people don't have a clear train of thought when they are stressed out. Their behaviors do change when they are stressed out.
Yep.
If you're in a negative mindset of stressed out, then of course everything that is going on, you're gonna find in a negative light. So,
So treatment, again, a lot of it was just talk therapy, just because it's individualized. So once you're in talk therapy, you can probably go other routes to see if there's something that works to help you. But kind of, they've noticed a lot of people that can just talk it through and kind of pinpoint what's going on, where they're at, and what they need to do from there. And that's kind of where they get their treatment plan from, is through talk therapy.
okay. I
That
personally
is,
think that talk therapy is something that needs to be used more because through a lot of these studies, we find out the more you talk about them and relive these, it makes it easier usually on the people to be put in those situations or find themselves, excuse me, like relating to those situations, and it's starting to become easier and easier to handle over the time.
yep. So you talk about it. They kind of fall into other, like you can start to do that in other therapies. Um, like the reliving it falls into a different therapy. It's escaping my head right now. Kind of like where it's like a reel in front of your head and face, and you kind of keep redoing it. Why is it? Because my counselor wanted to do it with me. But anyways, we're getting just you're let my brain get distracted.
I did.
You brought up talk therapy and like reliving things.
Oh, sorry.
And talk therapy can like lead into that type of therapy, but I don't know why it's not, my brain's not thinking of it. But that's all I really have on somatic symptom disorder as of right now.
Okay. That concludes that. And then, sorry, I'm hoarse. I was working outside all day today. The next topic is gonna be bipolar, and we had a couple people in chat already bring up a few comments about bipolar. We have, damn it. Punisher said, "My wife has suffered bipolar for over 20 years. It's a challenge." And then we had Muffin said, "My mother has bipolar disorder too, manic depressive, and it's so hard to deal with." So we have a couple people in chat that can relate to what we're about to talk about. So that's good.
So jump right into it.
Okay.
Bipolar disorder, it's also known as manic depressive illness or manic depression. It's an illness that causes unusual shifts in a person's mood, energy, activity levels, and concentrations. So there's 3 different types of bipolar. We'll talk about bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 because the third one is very, very uncommon. I'd say like less than 1%, I think it was saying, are diagnosed with that one.
Okay.
So we can do like a follow-up on that one later. But it's kind of like a mixture between the two different bipolars, but they're just so extreme
Okay.
and they're very short periods of time. So bipolar 1 disorder is defined as manic episodes that can last at least 7 days.
Just 7 days.
Then,
Ooh.
yep. So you're just kind of like, and bipolar 1 is where you want to say, I don't want to get ahead of myself, so we're gonna leave that. And then I have the notes written down, but I'm like, I don't want to get ahead. Depressive episodes can occur as well, and these typically last for like 2 weeks, and they kind of follow right after each other. So you have like manic, and you come crashing down from that high to a depressive.
Okay.
So that's bipolar type 1. Bipolar type 2 is defined by a pattern of depressive episodes and hypermaniac episodes. Hypermaniac episodes are less severe than manic episodes.
Okay.
So bipolar 1, this is what I was going to say, is like more intense.
Okay. Bipolar 1 is the more intense one.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like on the levels, bipolar 1 would be the more intense level of bipolar because you're going to be in those super, super highs and you're going to be in those really, really lows, and they're going to be for a long time, and it's going to drop very quickly, or you're going to jump very quickly. Bipolar type 2, the pattern is a little less drastic.
Okay.
I mean, it's still going to be drastic, but it's like not as high, not as low. So you're going to have a little bit more balance for you to figure yourself out.
Okay.
Somebody that's really well known that actually has bipolar 1, and he's a super big advocate for it. He travels and talks and spreads awareness on bipolar 1 and suicide awareness. His name is Kevin Hines.
Hines.
Hines, yeah.
Okay.
He is known for, I mean, besides what started this journey is in 2000, I think it was, he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in one of his episodes, and he lived.
Wait. During
an episode, he
during
jumped
an
off the Golden.
episode,
He's bipolar type 1, yeah, and so he was in one of his episodes, and it was a depressive episode. He was on a bus. So he has a documentary where he talks about this, and I've actually watched it before. It's called Suicide, The Ripple Effect.
Okay.
He got on a bus. He asked to get off the bus at the Golden Gate Bridge, and he decided then in that state, and this is, I think he knew he was bipolar type 1 at this point. He just decided then, like, he was going to end his life. That was it. But he is one of 36 people, so less than 1%, to survive a fall from the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow, that takes my ADHD to a whole nother level because I don't know how many people jump per year, how many survive, what their cause was.
Well, only 36 people have survived. I don't know the numbers of anybody else. I don't know how many people have jumped, but I know only 36 people have survived, and he's one of them.
Holy mackerel. That just blew my mind.
He is now a part of like mental health. He is now a part of Mental Health America for spreading the awareness of suicide and spreading awareness of bipolar. Like I said, he is very open about his struggles and what he goes through daily. Like his documentary is really good. It's like it touches your heart. He has gotten a Lifetime Achievement Awards for doing this. He's partnership with National Counselor of Behavior Health.
He's young.
The list. Yeah, the list goes on of the things that he has done, because he said when he survived the fall, he decided he was going to do something with it. So he still struggles. He still has his struggles daily with his bipolar disorder, but he took what he did and has like made something great out of it.
He's
September 25th, 2000
is when he jumped.
is when he jumped.
So
Because I have some
September
quotes from him.
25th, 2000. That's 23 years ago. He would have only been
He was 19.
19 years old.
Yeah, he was new. He knew he was suffering from bipolar disorder at this point. A quote that he has is, "I was hearing voices in my head saying, 'I need to die,' getting louder and louder. And I thought I had to go. I thought I was my family's greatest burden. I thought I was useless." And that's when he asked for the bus to pull over.
Holy crap. I'm definitely going to be looking into this more because you never know what somebody's going through, right? You just never really do know. And he knew he was bipolar, right?
Mm-hmm. So he knew, like, I mean, I don't want to say in those moments, like,
Well, during the episodes, you probably can't control a whole lot.
no, you're kind of, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but the way he talks is like you can feel yourself like falling into it, or you can feel yourself going into that manic, but you can't control what you're doing in those, because those thoughts in your head are getting louder and louder, like he had mentioned there.
Okay. He's definitely meant to be here for a reason. You're right, Muffin, because if he's only one of 36 survivors, then he's doing something with that message now. It's huge.
So I think his story is great. I don't wish that he had to go through that, but he is definitely doing something wonderful with it. He has a ton. Like I said, I've watched the documentary. It's really good.
He has a
Moving on.
podcast and everything.
Yep, he does so much with it. He really advocates for suicide awareness and bipolar. His motto is "Be here tomorrow." So he's not just focused on the bipolar; he's also focused on the suicide awareness and like,
awesome.
Yeah.
We had Muffin say it's described by her mother. It's like you want to go into a deep dark hole and never come out. Crazy. I don't know if I've ever met anybody that has been clinically diagnosed with bipolar disorder where it's been severe. So two of these topics tonight I haven't personally witnessed or been around anybody with them, so it's kind of different for me.
My mom was diagnosed with it. I'm pretty sure she was bipolar type 2, though. So a little different than Kevin Hines. So there's mania and hypermania, two different types of episodes. They can have similar symptoms. Like we mentioned, mania is more severe than the hypomania, and it causes more noticeable problems at work, school, or social activities. Mania can also trigger a break from reality and require being put in the hospital. Like you just get into this, like you're in your own world type of thing. Wow. So you're so high on life, because that's what it's been described to me as. Like you're so high on life that you could believe you can fly, you can just do anything. Like you're just not a part of this world anymore. Nothing's going to bring you down. Like everything's great. And that's like your mania. That's your highest point.
Okay.
So to get kind of control of that, sometimes people need to be hospitalized so they don't accidentally hurt themselves by listening to the thoughts in their head that they can do these things, that they are invincible and stuff like that. But then they also have that reverse when they come down from that mania and then they hit that low of depressive, because that's their roller coaster. They'll go from the high mania down to the low depressive. It's shocking to them and our people around them. They don't know how they just went from that high to that depressive. And it can be like a flip of a switch. So it says some of the like manic or hypomanic symptoms are abnormally upbeat, jumpy or wired, increased energy, exaggerated sense of well-being or self-confidence, decreased need of sleep. So you'll see sometimes people when they're in this manic or hypomanic state that they're not sleeping. They're kind of always up, they're always doing something. Unusually talkative. They'll have racing thoughts. They're easily distracted, and poor decision making. Sometimes people will go on shopping sprees, spend money that they don't have. The list could go on.
For example, we have and it says mania is rough, and they can come out in different ways. Like her mother became really dirty, or she went and spent 10 grand in less than 3 days at the casino. She never left the casino till every cent was gone.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's just like that impulse in their head that nothing matters to them at that moment. Like they're just living life. They're doing great. But then you drop to that major depressive episode, and these symptoms are severe enough to cause noticeable difficulty in the day-to-day. So especially if you're coming from that really high to this really low, you're going to notice it. But if there's like a gap between it, you're going to see the depressed mood. They're going to have that feeling of sad emptiness and hopelessness, marked loss of interest, feeling of no pleasure at all, significant weight loss if they're not eating, or the opposite if there's somebody who has the weight gain because they're eating a lot.
Okay.
And then the opposite of the mania, they start sleeping a lot. Or they have like slowed behavior, very fatigue,
So,
decrease. Go ahead.
so now does depression and bipolar have its ties?
Well, yes, because they have their depressive state. So
Right.
I don't know. They might not be depressed all the time, but they have their depressive states.
Okay.
So it could be.
But, all right. I just didn't know if like being in a depression, if they are diagnosed with bipolar, it would trigger an episode more.
It could. It's something I could look into more. I don't know that
Yeah.
answer.
Okay.
If they have depression and they have bipolar, they might just fall into those deeper depressive states more than
Okay.
going into the manic, because you can experience one of the other more. Like,
All right. So much to take in for me because I don't really have a lot of experience with this one. So this is like a lot of information for me, and I'm loving it.
yeah, fine. I was like thinking
No,
of where I wanted to go next.
yeah.
Along with that, this is the state where you'll be thinking, planning, or attempting suicide. So the depressive state is kind of what you would think. Of course, everybody has different extremes. They have different ways that they're going to cope or react. Like we mentioned, the casino, or there's like the Golden Gate Bridge example. Everybody's different, and it also depends on like if you fall on that bipolar type 1 or type 2.
Okay.
Bipolar can be handled on its own. but it is highly recommended that you do find a medicine to help chemically balance your body so that you aren't going to those high highs or low lows.
Okay.
Finding the correct medicine though for bipolar is hard because you can put them on like an antidepressant and it sends them into a manic.
Right.
So you have to do like an antidepressant with a mood stabilizer. So it's just all about if you're along for the ride and the journey of trying these different medicines, because a psychiatrist isn't going to want to put you on something that sends you into a manic. They're also not going to want to put you on something that sends you into a depressive, because you're dealing with two polar opposite sides of the spectrum. You have to find something that balances you in the middle.
Okay. Do DNA work best with your? Wow, that's good information.
What did you say?
She said they can do a DNA test and check what meds work best with your genes.
That's good to know.
That is good to know. I did not know that.
I'll have to. That's news to me.
Yeah. Most med managers can do that. Okay.
So like most, bipolar disorder is caused by unknown reasons. But there's several factors that may involve. So there's biological differences in people who have bipolar disorder. People with bipolar disorder appear to have actual physical changes in their brain.
Okay.
And typically, you don't get diagnosed with bipolar disorder until like your late teens, early 20s. So your brain's still developing then. So that is an interesting point to say, like, they are developing different and their brain is physically different than others, because they're going to start experiencing this just symptoms while their brain is still developing. So you're going to see that change.
Okay.
And then genetics. Bipolar disorder is more common in people who have a first-degree relative, such as siblings or parents. So it is like seen to be genetically passed down.
Oh. We haven't had a lot of those. A lot of the studies we've done to where it is like that close in the genetic chain where it does get passed through.
Mm-hmm. So concurring conditions are anxiety disorder, ADHD go hand in hand with bipolar.
I did know that. I did know that ADHD and bipolar do.
You're breaking up again.
I don't know why my noise gate's acting up.
It can also lead to alcohol and drug problems, especially in that manic state. And then there's a tie between physical health problems, such as health disease and thyroid problems.
Okay. Thyroid problem.
It doesn't say, like, I mean, they're probably doing more research on it, but it doesn't say why there's the tie between them.
Muffin said they diagnosed me with bipolar, yet I'm not. I have anxiety and depression and epilepsy. They didn't know I was epileptic. Still, I was an adult, so they fixed my diagnosis. They won't do it if in teens because now of the misdiagnosis, they were doing it for years.
Mm-hmm. They have calmed down with diagnosing people with bipolar disorder. I was actually misdiagnosed when I was 20 with bipolar disorder, and it was actually PTSD, because it can represent itself very similar to trauma responses as well in women. So it doesn't surprise me that you were misdiagnosed with bipolar at like a young age, and then they kind of pulled it back and said, no, you didn't have it.
Crazy. Wonder how many people out there are walking the earth with misdiagnosed symptoms of something and taking medications that they don't even need that aren't even really helping them.
Yeah, I mean, I went through the whole process of trying to go through like the medicines and stuff, and then I went to a new doctor and they told me I wasn't bipolar. I was like, oh, cool, I'll get rid of all this because I don't need it.
Right, but then it just put this change into your body for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Your body has to react to the medication.
I think sadly though, with everything like intertwining and everybody being so individualized, and me having a mom that has or had bipolar, it kind of put me on that risk factor of
The spectrum, because it is your first line of genetics.
yep.
Which makes sense, but
And that could be the same thing for Muffin as well, because you said that was her mom that was diagnosed with it.
yes, her
I
mom
can't
is
see the
diagnosed.
chat, so.
Oh, yeah, it was her mom. So,
But that's all I have.
so you have
For
chat.
these two.
Chat. Do we have anything else, guys? Guys, I'm processed a lot here today because I don't know a whole lot about these guys. You talked to me about ADHD and all the other PTSD and stuff like that. I was all into. Now this is a subject that I'm not really intertwined with, but I'm gonna educate myself with everything that Alyssa's also brought to the table today, and I want to learn more. I want to look into Kevin Hines and his story, and it intrigues me to know more and more every day. They give a lot of seizure meds for mood stabilizers, which is unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do know. I have heard of for bipolar that Adderall with the ADHD and the bipolar, that the Adderall is effective for both. So, but then again, you can put them into that high state with that too, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta just like watch that you're not flipping
Yeah.
the switch on them and sending them into the opposite.
Yeah.
But again, that's why you go to a psychologist and they figure out that balance for you. It's a journey, but
Yeah. And then now we learn that they can test you.
yeah.
I'm gonna dig into that too. I'm curious to see how that works and see what exactly they do and how they read it to figure it out. Um, I don't have anything else, guys. I'll give you guys a few seconds here if you want to come up with any questions. If you guys have any future topics you guys would like to hear about, you guys can let us know on Twitter, the Discord. You can let us know in here. You can let us know on Facebook, because we want to take in what you guys would like to hear about and also give us a chance to study and learn about it and then share with you guys what we do come up with. And a lot of statistics usually come across. We didn't have a lot of statistics across the board for the first one, but it's all so much to take in, and it's not talked about enough, and I'm glad we're here to talk about it. um it's just, it's not talked about enough. I can never say that enough. Never say it's not okay to be okay enough, but we can say you are not alone. We are here. We are here. So with that, guys, we are going to conclude this week's episode of the Fly High Wi-Fi Mental Health Podcast. We want to thank you guys for being here, with the continued support, the love, everything, and we will see you guys in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye. I forget you can't see me.